Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to V with Micah G, the show of life, the show of Fugazi, Mezcal, great burgers, food, France, and so much more. With today's guest, the owner-operator of the Hightower, Austin, one of my favorite restaurants in town, Mr. Chad Dolezal. It's been an incredible journey for Chad as a guitar player, as a touring musician, moving to France to really dive into food. It's a really great tale, and it's good to finally sit down and chat with Chad. We, in a sense, I'd consider us kindred spirits, and it was brilliant to finally get a chance to sit and just talk about life and get to hear Chad's tale. Of course, the food at the Hightower is some of the best in town. It's reasonably priced. The cocktails are good, and it is the vibe that you exactly want on the east side of Austin to enjoy just a lovely meal. So I can't speak highly enough of the Hightower. And no, I am not getting paid to say this. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Chad Dolezal.
Honestly, completely. It's one of those things where, I think we still have the same spirit about what we wanted to do.
Yeah.
But legitimately, you're talking about kid. I signed the lease on the Hightower in 4 hours after my kid was born.
Holy shit, are you kidding me?
In the maternity ward waiting room. And then
was it one of those e-file things?
No, I had a realtor there.
Oh my God,
it was super. Incredible. It was our landlord's realtor, so it was. It was pretty funny. It was hilarious. Thinking back on it, it was absolutely stupid.
Yeah.
But we had just negotiated for 6 months. It was the third spot we had looked at. And you go through these processes and you get beat down a little bit, and finally everything came together. And obviously my child being born supersedes it quite a bit, but it was one of those things where it was like, okay, so we can hit the ground running. And the idea behind the Hightower was take what we saw as a very northern idea. I spent some time in Portland, Oregon, and going, okay, and we taken some trips up to Chicago and just talked to different people and going, what if your neighborhood bar happened to be a restaurant that you love too?
Right.
And so that's what our drive was with the Hightower. We're like bare bones. We had no money, so we had the luxury of not being able to spend any. So it was that kind of took care of itself. My wife did a lot of design for it that we just couldn't afford to do.
Right.
We couldn't afford to buy art. We couldn't. Thank God that we know Graham, who made us a hell of a deal on what originally was our only piece of artwork, this big fucking mural that we had in the back. And other than that, there was nothing. And so we were like, okay, it doesn't matter. We're a bar. We're going to put out kind of barish food. Like our opening menu was, beer cheese soup with carnitas and things like that. Things that I still love. But, and I'm sure you've seen this too as a business owner. It's a lot of what you do, or I think a lot of what I have to do now is reactionary to people that come in.
That's right.
I would love to live in
Chad world.
Yeah. Where it goes, cool, we're doing everything right. People love this. And some people, a lot of what happened at the beginning of the Hightower, especially the first 6 months, were, we had come from El Arbol, which was a much higher price point than we ever wanted to be. And part of what we did with the Hightower, at least what I did, I won't drag Vic down with me, but part of what I did was very reactionary to El Arbol. I was like, I want to be the anti, kind of style over substance, or just grand restaurant. And not that there's anything wrong with those restaurants.
So was that the effect of how you severed that relationship, or was it merely like, my palate is done with this kind of aesthetic of restaurant, I need to do something different?
Both. I mean, towards the end of El Arbol, I mean, Vic, who's my business partner now, was my boss.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, what worked out, I mean, and we decided probably 4 months before El Arbol closed that we wanted to do something different. I was just a little beat down. It was a lot of, I mean, having an owner that had certain expectations, which all owners do and all owners have the right to, they should.
Right.
And they were just different than my own. And it was a lot of make sure it's appealing to this crowd versus this crowd. And my background just through my life is appealing to every crowd I mean, that feels kind of cliche as I say it, but it's the truth. And that's what Vic and I started talking about.
Accessibility, maybe?
Yeah, just accessibility. Right. There you go. That's way better put. And that's what we were looking at. We're like, why don't we just get away from this? You know, I don't want to worry about a freaking $60 steak on the menu. I want to worry about a $16 steak on the menu and make it creative and you know, just hope that it's good. And so, you know, with the Hightower, that's how we started. We're like, we're going to be a bar. People love it. Everyone loves bars. And we were wrong. And basically we were wrong in the sense that people would walk in and we knew exactly what we wanted to be. We had a hard time articulating it. Mm-hmm. I mean, including to our PR company who did the best they could. But it was just one of those things where people would walk in and they go, well, this isn't that nice. We're like, no, it's a bar.
Oh.
And they go, well, you know, you don't have, you know, I mean, when the Hightower opened, we had paper roll-up napkins. I mean, it was bare bones.
Right.
And I mean, somewhat intentional, somewhat budgetary.
Necessity, right?
Yeah. But it was really, I mean, we were happy with where we're at, and I can't lie or deny that. And you know, we were proud of what we did, but a lot of people just came in. They're like, okay, you're either not enough bar or not enough restaurant. We're like, crap. Like this is, you know. And when I was living in Portland, that's where we went. You know, and I had buddies in Chicago. I talked to them, and we went up and visited them. And that's what they a lot were. And that's not to say people in Austin didn't get it. I mean, if there's any fault, it's our own. And, you know, it's just a matter of pushing kind of what you want. And so basically, I think it's 6 to 8 months, you know, you take a long look inward and you go, okay, you know, did I build a clubhouse for myself or did I build a place that I want people to enjoy? And the answer, I think, unless you're a dickhead, is always a place for people to enjoy.
Well, that's the thing, is that you make a product. It starts because you want to make something for yourself.
Yeah,
you're patting yourself on the back. Not to be too grandiose about it, but that's kind of how it is. It's a creative nod to yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, but then the business piece, operations come into play.
Yeah.
P&Ls come into play, and then it kind of changes. And so, did you ever feel? And we'll talk about kind of the music piece and probably some Dallas stuff as well. But like, did you ever feel like you were just putting your vision or your passion on the sideline to do what it really took for people to enjoy the place?
No, I mean, there's a way that you could easily look at it, and I think it's a cop out to say yes a little bit, because if you care about what you're doing, and you know, I do. I mean, I care about serving people good food. That is, I mean, that's actually my only job.
Self-evident too, yeah.
And it's one of those things where if I cared more about my ego, then the Hightower would have closed, I mean, before our first year was up, you know, easily. I mean, and that ran through our heads. I mean, no one came into the Hightower, and that's what's sad when we would talk about people coming in, because there weren't that many people coming in. No one came into the Hightower to the weekend of our first anniversary, and all of a sudden people showed up, and I still to this day don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I'm happy they did. I'm happy, you know, well, I'm happy, and I hope that people, when they discover it, they like it. But it is one of those things where, you know, we're in this industry, you know, to make people happy. Someone's spending their money literally at my house party.
That's
you know?
right, yeah.
And
their time, their money, all of that.
Yeah, and it's like to sit there and go, you don't get it, or you haven't earned, you know, you don't deserve to understand it, or, and you know, and that's what we opened it up with. Because when we opened up the Hightower, Austin was just coming up the bubble of becoming like that restaurant city, that food town.
Yeah. Was this before Levi? Am I thinking Levi?
Levi was down the street from us. We were almost opening at simultaneously.
So, which is interesting because those are two really distinct case studies.
Oh yeah, it was
talking about the temperature of Austin dining at that time.
And this, I mean, and never did we ever set up to be the anti anyone else, but necessarily I become disappointed sometimes when the personnel behind a restaurant becomes more important than who's being served at the restaurant.
That's a good point.
And I think that happens a lot. And I'm sure there are people out, that would think that anyone, that I would do the same thing, but it's honestly simply not true. I mean, the best example is when Vic and I were sitting in my backyard talking about the Hightower, I go, there are two rules we'll always have. I'll never serve Brussels sprouts and I'll never serve a hamburger. And both those things are on my fucking menu right now.
Well, dude,
because it's what people want.
And it's fucking insanely delicious.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy. I mean, the Brussels sprouts pay our rent. So
But you got to admit, they're transcendently delicious.
I get sick when I smell them at this point.
Because there's so much.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's that and the pork jowl both make me sick to my stomach every time we serve
like,
one of them.
It's like Chumbawamba, man. I mean, that's like, like every time it comes on.
We Chumbawamba the fuck out of the restaurant industry.
That's right. But that's okay.
Yeah.
Because anybody that comes, they don't have the same connection and the same repetitive injury, I guess you could.
Oh, no, and I
think you get that, right? Like, where it's like, I'm going to go through some of this.
Yeah.
Some of these ailments, I'm going to get tired of smelling these fucking things, but people love them.
Dude, if someone likes it that much, they come in, and sometimes people order them twice when they sit down.
Yeah.
I mean, and like I say, what I tell you about the smell, I mean, one, unfortunately, it's the truth, but two, it's a joke. I mean, who am I kidding? You know, I mean, that's awesome. It's the best compliment ever that I can sit there and look at a product mix and go, holy fuck, I sold 4 times as many Brussels sprouts as I did literally anything else in this restaurant.
Crazy?
And no, and it's amazing. And I mean, it's what I always love about like the lists that come out, and I'm sure you see them all the time too in your industry. And it's just like, what are the most overrated or what's so over in 2014? And at the list is always Brussels sprouts. And I was like, good, but also fuck you. You know what I mean? Like,
so they can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
But if you think that grown women with great professional careers aren't still going back and listening to the Spice Girls, you're fucking fooling yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's just time and place for it.
Yeah.
There are things that just work. U2 doesn't get tired of playing with or without you.
Yeah.
That's the bread and butter, man.
No, and it makes people I mean, in a perfect world, hopefully, I mean, who knows what fucking Bono thinks every night when he's singing that. But in a perfect world, they play that because they go, you know what we just did? We made so many fucking people happy. And that's the way I look at the Brussels sprouts. It's just like, man, that's crazy because like the whole opening of the Hightower was reactionary. Yeah. And it was like right when the Brussels sprout craze was going on. And, and it wasn't out of spite, but I was just like, I want to do something different, and there'll be no Brussels sprouts. And I mean, that lasted 4 months. Yeah. I mean, then they were on the menu and the way they are now, we've never touched them and never changed them. Yeah. But and that comes down to the fact that you do what people, want. Yeah. And why the hell not? Otherwise, why be in an industry? I mean, the same goes for yours. The same goes with liquor. I mean, in spirits, it's just one of those things where if you're not doing something people like, or you're doing something that like, oh, in a few years they'll get it. It's like, well, fuck off. Who are you? Yeah. I mean, why worry about what people are going to catch up to you for? I don't need anyone catching. I'm not smart enough. I'm sure fucking not cool enough for anyone to get me. I mean, it's a matter of me getting them. And
but it's that, I think Austin's a great place to observe it, that people get so tied into what's hip and what's cool. And LA has this problem, and not that Austin's like LA is far larger, but like people have this thing where it's like, yeah, they know it's cool.
Yeah.
But then you ask them and they don't know it's cool.
Oh, yeah.
They're just kind of faking it.
Well, and that's, I mean, for better or for worse, I mean, the thing I love most about the Hightower is that people like you come in. And I'm not going to name drop like people from restaurants and different places that come in, but we get a lot of people like you in our restaurant.
Hairy people?
What's that?
Hairy, short people?
Guy's named Mike. I mean, It's real awkward.
It's a very specific piece of the market, actually.
And I mean, I'm going to tell you, most guys named Mike are pieces of shit. So,
I can attest to that. Yeah.
I mean, but people that are in the industry or industry related and and it's, to me, that is the biggest compliment when someone from, wherever comes in, and like I say, I'm always afraid if I name one restaurant, I'm forgetting to name like four more or anything like that. But it's a huge compliment. And the Hightower at the same time we've never been seen as we've never been that seen cool. And I'm fine with that.
But you've been chugging away.
No,
you know what I mean?
And that's kind of what we've done. And we've had, honestly, if it weren't for industry support, we've got a great bunch of regulars. Don't get me wrong about that, because they're the lifeblood. Same people that buy your gin every time. You're like, okay, I need you, and I need our regulars. But we've got a good amount of industry people that come in, and they keep us alive, and they are word of mouth. We work with PR. I'm not ever gonna, lie about what they do for us.
Sure.
And it is one of those things, though, that we're kept alive. A place like the Hightower is kept alive by word of mouth.
Absolutely. You guys are the true touring band.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're Black Flag in the 80s, right? Yeah. No one knew shit about them because there's no other way except word of mouth.
Yeah.
Oh, I went there.
By the way, that is the single coolest analogy I've ever had put towards me, and I'm going to probably use that to the day I die.
Tell somebody.
Yeah, I'm going to tell a lot of people that, and then I'm going to pretty much claim it as my own, if you don't mind.
Far-fetched analogies are my thing. Just for the record. But
that just made it seem super fucking tough.
But that's it. You're in there working day to day, creating great food, building an organic relationship with these people, and you're not paying for it.
Yeah.
You're not selling yourselves out. You're catering to what people want with the way that you know how.
Well,
right?
Yeah. And I look at the menu like we have it right now. And when I look at our Brussels sprouts, I find a lot of joy in creating things that are ridiculous. And our Brussels sprouts, what we went for as far as like bringing taste in, quite literally, we were talking about peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and the fact that I didn't like peanut butter when I was a kid and how stupid that was. And I was like, let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and make it taste like, let's make Brussels sprouts and make it taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that's what we did. And I love that when people go, oh, I taste Thai or I taste Latin. And it's like, that is badass because it's supposed to taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And that's, we do most of our epicenters for ideas are ridiculous shit. Yeah. They usually start in somewhere goofy or kid related.
Yeah.
And so that's, to go way back and answer kind of what you're saying before is about losing kind of your identity and purpose, is that I think, I think being under the gun and, especially in Austin restaurant scene today, you got to worry about how you're viewed, who's coming in. It's a volume game.
Sure.
I was talking to someone about that the other day. Of course you're watching percentages. Like you have to, but it's a volume game, and that's all it is, because volume's not awesome right now.
Keep people in the door.
Yeah. Go talk to your favorite restaurant owner or go talk to your favorite chef, and I guarantee you across the board, they're all going, either I'm completely hurting or I'm hurting worse than I did 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. I can't think, and I'm sure there are because I don't know everybody, but I can't think of a restaurant that's not saying that. And so pushing who you are at the same time is a little scary. And so that's, we ride the line of that. I was like, I know every kitchen uses this term, but like when we make up an item, we're like, oh, it's there, but it's not Hightower food yet. And, and all of our minds, especially our core group of cooks,
right?
And hell, to our bar manager, to our front of the house manager, they all know what that means, and it means something very unique to us that we live and die for. So, we're not laying in the street and just going, okay, fuck, it's Buffalo Wing Wednesday,
right?
And if they come in, they come in, and again, probably in 3 weeks it'll be Buffalo Wing Wednesday, but. But and again, nothing wrong with that, but it is one of those things where, we are very protective about what we do and how we do it.
Yeah.
The fact that the kind of restaurant we are, and this is going to sound like a lot of humble bragging, but it's not, it's just kind of, we make a ridiculous amount of stuff in-house. We used to make our own tofu, and we stopped doing it when I realized that we sold fucking 8 tofu a week. And I'm okay, this takes me literally a day to make for 8 people to like, and so we took that off the menu, but we do our own bread. I mean, and that's where we come from as a kitchen, and all of our backgrounds as cooks come from, is going, okay, if we can't stand behind it, what are we doing this for? So it's a weird balance. And then you go, okay, we got to get it out there to where someone likes it. So we are very technique heavy, but most of the time we hide all those techniques, or we don't, it's not something.
It's not about the technique.
Yeah. It's not generally like presented on our Instagram account or written on our menu, because I'd rather you go, I like fucking pork jowl, or whatever, I like short ribs, and, our short rib, honestly, when it comes down to it, is a burrito. And I mean, when it's presented on a plate, very rarely does it look like a burrito, but it's honestly based off a steak burrito.
Yeah.
And we go through, corning a short rib and figuring out how to make a sourdough tortilla, which was the worst thing in the world. And, making it hold up and stuff like that. And when it comes down to it, we're like, man, I hope when this hits your table, you go, this is the coolest burrito I've ever seen in my life.
It's amazing.
And I mean, and that's what it, I think that's the trick now. Not that we found some secret formula, because we have good days and bad days, just like literally everyone does, but it is, it is important for us to hold on to identity at the same time as going, not forgetting our purpose. And our purpose, if you work in a restaurant, your purpose is to make people happy.
It's about other people.
And and we don't do that all the time. I mean, hell, I read a freaking awful review of us 2 days ago on either Yelp or Open Table. They just weren't happy. And, we dropped the ball. We have a lot of new people in our kitchen, and they weren't, and this falls on me. They weren't being watched the way they should, and things slip through the crack as they do, because, we've had, as you and I talked about a couple times, we've had a hell of a last week with some turnover. We lost a sous chef and things like that, and that makes for a rough week. And some things fell through the cracks, and that's us. That's me. It's not us. It's me. And so what we do is try to reach out to people and not go, well, fuck, they didn't get it. They didn't get what we were doing.
No, you took ownership of it.
You go, no, we sucked. Like that sucks. We let you down. You spent money and you weren't happy.
Absolutely. And I got an email, and I think this is just, again, kind of a case study, and I got an email a few months ago now. Someone said, hey, we got this bottle of your gin. We got this Navy Strength. I drank it with some mates. It's a guy from Australia, I believe. Not a joke. I think it really was.
I thought you were just being
cool.
No,
I'm not being, no, he was. And he said it was the worst thing that we'd ever had. It tasted petrol. And I was like, okay. Hey, no matter how I felt, right? I said, no problem. If you come in town, let me tour you around the distillery, and I'll give you whatever bottle you guys want. I want you to find something that you can like. I
want you to be happy.
That's right. And so you could always pull like, fuck you, customer.
Yeah.
You're stupid.
Yeah, you don't get it.
But that's how everybody is right now.
Yeah, no,
like, it's your problem. You're an idiot. You voted for this guy. You're a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
But that guy, he's got a family.
Yeah.
Like, his kids are really nice.
You just shit on a whole generation of people. Like,
but you think that's missing, the fact that people need to step away from their art for a moment and realize that they can make that you and I make mistakes.
Yeah.
That we're responsible for these things.
And I think that goes to it. And again, when I look at food, anything, you said art, like I look at food as a skill set. And I think food can be made into art. What we do at the Hightower is, and what I think most restaurants, not have to do with the Hightower, I think most restaurants are, the food they put out is part of a skill set.
Right.
I think there's probably less than 50 restaurants in the world that are doing food as art, that are actually pulling it off. And I think that's the customer to restaurant relationship, I think sometimes the customer wants that, and I think sometimes the restaurant wants that, and I think that's getting lost in translation a lot of time.
Yeah.
To where, it kind of goes back to something we were saying before about, when Austin was coming up on this bubble, there are a lot of people opening restaurants, and whether they're the right reasons to open them or the wrong reasons to open them, that's for them and their friends and investors and everyone else to figure out. But I looked at it, and I was part of it. El Arbol was that. I wasn't an owner there. I was a paid employee.
Yeah.
but a lot of times, and that's why the Hightower's reaction to that, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, legitimately, I was like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore because this doesn't feel right. The things we're talking about, the way we're shaping this is not about the customer anymore. It's allowing them the privilege to pat us on the back. Mm-hmm. And again, the way I grew up, the way I was raised, to the crowd I found in high school, to the crowd I stuck with through my 20s, were not those kind of people. They were like, you do it for everyone else. I mean, we were always big. The way I was raised through high school.
So that's actually a perfect segue, because I don't know, we've met here in the past few years as Hightower's kind of grown and really, really established itself as a wonderful place. But are you a Dallas kid?
I grew up in Dallas. I lived in Dallas till I was 18.
Where about?
North Dallas. What I call is Dallas proper, just because Dallas has become so many different things, So we lived... we lived as far as you could pretty much in Dallas without living in like Farmers Branch or Carrollton, okay. So we were Dallas proper. And it was,
and so you're born in Dallas.
Yeah.
What'd your folks do?
My dad was an engineer and my mom worked for, she passed away right before El Arbo opened, and, she worked at Aid Services Austin.
Really?
So or Aid Services Austin, Jesus Christ. Aid Services Dallas. Yeah, sorry about that. We do work with Aid Services Austin. And that's part of, again, is when I go back to the way I was raised, not that it wasn't my dad, but it was definitely my mom.
Caring about people, right?
Fucking earn the right to have a voice. Don't just have one. You got to have a reason to.
Right.
And, her idea of public service was bigger than anyone else I had ever met. And that's what a lot of it was based in. And then once I found punk rock, so the way I was raised to like finding all the degenerates that I, started meeting, it worked out perfect. I was like, oh, cool. So, all these ideas that had been brought up to me when I was a kid all of a sudden make sense with these kids that play music I want to go hear, and spout off things I want to hear, and so it was a great segue. Can
you think of? I try to go back and I think about what bands really transformed me, and maybe inspired me to start picking up a guitar now and again. But for you, because you're a guitar player, we talked about SGs here just a little bit ago. But can you think of some of those bands, some of those guys that really drove you to want to participate?
Yeah, that's easy. It was, Minor Threat, Fugazi, those types of bands where I remember hearing and I was like, oh my God, these guys, it's not that they give a shit, it's how much of a shit they give. And again, it wasn't, I love the Jesus Lizard and just people, and Jesus Lizard comes from a different sense of community than like Fugazi.
Oh, absolutely. Not as political.
Yeah, but I'm talking about leaving it all out there, and it's not, holding nothing back. And and it was definitely, kind of with the Fugazi thing. I literally remember the first time I heard them, and I was like, and I had listened to Minor Threat first.
Sure.
And again, all these bands, Minor Threat was long gone by the time I first heard them. And I remember hearing them, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Because I was, before that, I had an older brother and sister. I was listening to Black Sabbath and Guns N' Roses and, stuff like that.
And like assertive metal. Probably,
but definitely not. And to be completely honest, a good amount of, Joy Division and all the, all that kind of stuff.
Well, you gotta cry while you're rallying against the cause.
Eurythmics was the other one.
The Rhythmics are great.
Yeah.
Analytics, man.
Yeah. And so I was coming from that. And then a buddy of mine who was a year older than me, played me Minor Threat. And I just remember sitting in his room and going, everything, like everything's, I'm going to find this music.
Yeah.
Like, this is it. And then we're sitting there, and it was months. Just because, again, we were in our own little... The school I went to in Dallas, it was... Well, any school in Dallas has nothing to do with the school I went to. The Dallas school I went to Dallas is perfectly fine. But any school in Dallas is based around sports. And
Texas, right?
Yeah. Weighing fucking 90 pounds didn't really help me fit into that crowd.
Right.
And much less, I started cutting my own hair. And I was I was on my own planet, which is great. I mean, if there's anything I can hope for is that my kids are too, because it made me a great freaking weirdo. And
marching to the drum of your own beat.
There you
right?
go.
Yeah.
And
or beat of your own drum.
Yeah. And it was just one of those things where, it was probably some being a self-imposed outcast. It's always funny. I talk about like I was straight edge in high school. Well, it was really
I was going to
easy
ask you about that.
because I was definitely
not getting girls.
Yeah, no girl was going to come talk to me anyway. So that was easy. I was like, well, and both my brother and my sister were definitely way wilder than I am. I mean,
really?
Yeah. I mean, they were pretty heavy into some shit.
Yeah.
And for not going into details, but like I could get away with murder because my sister
set a really high bar.
Yeah, my sister would drop acid and walk through our living room as my mom and I were watching TV, and I'm
Put
like,
some pants on, goddammit.
Yeah, and I've seen my brother go beyond dry heaving and things like that.
Yeah,
and, and it was rough, and it was one of those things. I mean, and honestly, that time my brother and I shared a bathroom, and I remember seeing that and going, well, I'm not ever gonna fucking do that.
Right.
And I was a little test subject when I was a kid, so they'd be like, cool, here's a joint, here's alcohol,
right.
Here's Zima. I was about to say, I definitely wouldn't be handing anything cool. It'd be like, here's this awful sugary drink. You're going to vomit in 20 minutes. And
but at least we're offering it.
Yeah. And so, then I heard Minor Threat right at so many things. I'm sure it happens for everybody, or at least you look back with rose-colored glasses and it seems like it does, but I really think it did. It just all came together at the same time. And I remember hearing Minor Threat and I'm like, fuck, this is the way I feel. Like, fuck this shit. I mean, again, I'm not getting a girl, but
right.
I convinced myself that I didn't want to. And
booze doesn't seem to be paying off for your brother and sister, right?
And it was just like, I don't want to do drugs. I don't want to drink. And all of a sudden it was just music. And so we sat around, we listened to Minor Threat, I think just on repeat for freaking 6 months. And then I remember my buddy had a Fugazi cassette, and it was like a mix. And Repeater was the first song I heard. It was in 91. And I was like, fuck, like this is a perfect, noisy, crazy song.
It's so good, yeah.
And then I remember like it kept going, and we played that tape out, and then we just went to the next thing. Then we discovered the Jesus Lizard, and we were like, what the hell are these guys?
Which is cool because you ended up here.
Yeah.
And they're an awesome band.
You go back to Scratch Acid and all those guys, and you're just like,
well, so Jesus Lizard, right? They maybe were LA, but Scratch Acid was absolutely Austin.
Yeah. Right? Jesus Lizard, I think they ended up going up to Chicago.
Oh, Chicago, yeah. Okay.
And Scratch Acid was here. And the cool thing about this, a totally different tangent, but I remember reading that like Scratch Acid and all those bands, when they were coming up, were all called, I think the term they always used was poster bands.
Yeah,
which means they weren't real bands. They would just do posters of shows that didn't fucking exist. And finally they were like, well, we should start playing shows. And it turned out that, Scratch Acid's fucking amazing.
It's amazing,
and then you get to the Jesus Lizard, and, you have like Dwayne Dennison, who's, is just the most amazing guitar player ever. And it's just a perfect accumulation of talent and just not giving a shit.
Yeah. I have no idea how this music story turns into you making food, becoming a chef. Tell me how the hell that happened.
So this band from San Diego, it was called Watch It Burn. We moved to Portland because we thought it would be easier to tour out of Portland because it was cheaper. San Diego's, I think it's no secret. It's horrendously expensive. And
very white.
Yes, it is. It is shockingly white. And so we had a lot of friends. Rise was based more or less out of Portland at this point, and a lot of our friends were out of Portland. So we're like, okay, we got a good support system. We know we got friends up there. Let's move up there. And okay, so preface this: we're having a going away party because the drummer and the guitar player moved up a month and a half or 2 months before everyone else did. Our bass player ended up not going. We had another bass player set up there. And so they left early. At our going away party, this girl who I've been wanting to talk to forever that I'd stared at this bar finally talks to me. And so we hang out that night. And of course, my roommate at the time is a giant prick. So I tell him, I'm like, hey, Joy's talking to me. And he was like, cool. And immediately starts hitting on her. I'm like, God, I fucking hate you, man. And so we go to this party. There was a time in my life when I actually went to after party. So yeah, we're at this party. Then we go to an after party. And we're sitting there. And all he's doing is hitting on her. And it's making me insane. Because I've got, I mean, still.
You like the girl.
I'm way not straight edge at this point. But still, attracting women is not my strong point. And so I'm just like, you got to be fucking kidding me. And so finally, she blows him off, and she was like, why are you letting Alf talk to me so much? And I'm like, because I don't fucking know. I don't know how to talk to anybody. And so, long story short, that was 2004. She's my wife now. And so,
that's amazing.
But I meet her as I'm leaving. So I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do. I've already made a commitment. I already had an apartment up in Portland. And so, I mean, it was the worst. I mean, I meet this girl and you try not to be stupid and go, well, do I stay in San Diego for this girl I've known a month?
Yeah.
And do I break a lease that I've already signed? And do I disappoint two guys that, I love?
Yes.
But I didn't.
Oh, shit. No.
Well, no, I am not that much of a romantic.
I know now only. Yeah.
No, I totally fucked up. And I mean, we talked about it. I was like, I don't know what to do. This is a giant ball in motion.
Yeah.
And so we go up there, we talk, and thank God that Joy has got more guts than me. She's just like, why are we doing this? Why don't I live in Portland? And so we made the very adult decision that we weren't going to live together. So she moves one house away, so immediately we start living together.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I mean, and then from Portland, I mean, we go, so we're in Portland, the band implodes because bands fucking do that. I mean, because it's a bunch of volatile egos. I mean, honestly, because of me. I mean, I mean, my roommate was one of my best friends who was also the singer and guitar player in the band. And it was one of those things, anyone aside from Joy, that is in just a boiler pot with me, usually we explode. And not because of anger or ego, it's just, especially when you're just having that kind of, when you have two high energy people that are just going at it, it just, at some point it's not going to work. Right. And it didn't work. And I mean, I love those guys and, there's definitely, I mean, it's easy going now. But so that implodes. And at the same time, I get fired from a normal job. And at this time, I'm with Joy. I get fired. And I call her on the way out. And I go, I need to figure out what I'm doing with my life. And
how old were you then?
So this was 2005. So I started late. So, I mean.
27?
Yeah. So I'm so fucking bad at math. So that was 12 years ago. Yeah, 27.
Yeah.
Jesus.
See, I was trying to do the math.
You're right. All right, that's fine.
On the fly math, it's good good for tipping.
I do not possess that skill. So, no, it was 2004. So, and that wasn't to prove you wrong. I was just 26 because I was like, I remember being 26. Yeah, I told you I was right, Mike.
Sure, Chad. Sure.
Yeah. So I tell her, I go, I either want to be a sound engineer or I want to go cook. And she was like, well, what do you want to do more? And I'm like, I honestly have no idea. But if I have a gut reaction, it's going to go cook. And she was like, well, then go cook. She's like, then why are you worried about it?
Stop dicking around. Yeah, just go do it.
Go do it. And so.
Sounds like a good partner.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, like I say, I'd not dead, but I'd definitely be homeless a long time ago and just a complete waste. And so I go to culinary. I mean, and so as I told you before, I'm not good at school. And so I'm like, I have to go to school. And solely, I hold no value in culinary school. And that's not to knock anyone that's been there. Right, but even before I went, so I started cooking a little bit. And right when I started cooking, I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to get to culinary school. Because it's the only way. I have to spend a lot of my own money to make myself dedicated to this. Because I can't fuck this up again.
But you didn't want to go to culinary school, did you?
Not for the knowledge I would gain, but just to prove that I could, because at that point there'd been a long line of like, well, being a musician.
Yeah.
And the good thing about being a musician is that you can not follow through with stuff and no one really notices.
Yeah.
Except yourself. And that's not, again, not a dig, but at least for me, that's how I set it up. I go, I can do anything. And just like when the band I was in imploded, I was like, oh, it was me, but it wasn't really me. And I knew it was me, you know, and it was one of those long, hard kind of look things. It was like, okay, am I going to go cook for a year and then say, fuck it, and start working in shipping and receiving departments again? Or doing...
Can't do that.
Yeah. And I mean, and so it was just one of those things where I knew I wanted to do something. I needed an outlet. And I had too much energy to sit in an office.
Right.
And so it was literally, I mean, that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go to culinary school just to force myself to be committed to this.
Yeah.
And I did. I mean, and I never missed a day of culinary school. You know,
Did you finish?
Oh, yeah. I finished, and
that's incredible.
You know, I mean, did everything. I finished with a 4.0, which in culinary school, that's a pretty low bar, but it was one of those things where, and again, it was one of those things where I went home and did homework.
Yeah.
You know, as an older, especially in this industry, as an older person, I was 26. And by that point, you know, a lot of people were running kitchens.
Right.
And so I was like, well, fuck, you know, I got to figure this out. And so I, you know, just buckled down with it, worked at a couple restaurants in Portland. And then when we knew we were going to move back to Austin, I was like, let's go overseas. I was like, I want to work in France. And so we set on my resume. My brother-in-law's French.
Yeah.
My sister's husband's French. And so he helped us out in a tremendous amount and got me a job in this French restaurant in the Côte d'Or in a town called Neuilly Saint-Georges.
Oh my gosh.
And I went there. I couldn't drive a stick shift. I showed up in February. It was an ice storm.
Yeah.
I couldn't speak French at all. And, you know, we showed up there and immediately, I showed up, had dinner. The next morning I woke up and I went to work 6 days a week, working split shifts every day except for Wednesdays. And it was
hard.
It was impossibly hard because the French are amazing people. They are fucking, 26 in America, you still feel pretty young. You're like,
sure.
I got the world at my feet.
Yeah.
26 in France, and dude, you're looking at retirement. You're figuring out what you're going to do for 10 years so you can get the fuck out. And so people, they go, why are you bothering with this right now? And I'm like, because I'm an idiot. I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. And so I went over there and got my ass handed to me repeatedly. But also, again, it's one of those things. It's like you either throw it out there or why the fuck bother?
Yeah.
And so,
that is going all in.
No, and that's, again, it was another one of those things where it's like I have to do, if I'm going to continue to commit to this.
Yeah.
When the Hightower was just an idea, I would tell everyone about it. And, you know, one time my friend, he goes, why do you keep spouting off about this? I was like, because if I say it enough, I have to fucking do it.
Yeah.
And that's
it's a
the only
contract
way.
To yourself. Yeah.
And it's like, you don't understand how hyperactive people work. I have so many irons in the fire right now, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
But the ones that I keep talking about are the ones I'm committed to just because it forces me to, because on top of, I hate it when people aren't committed to something, looking like a dipshit is a very close second to that. Or looking like a failure.
Yeah.
And dude, you know how bootstrap it is for any business you do. So
I don't mention anything unless I'm ready to make it happen.
Yeah.
I'm very, mum's the word until it's actually going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but I get, like, once you say it, then it's out there.
Yeah.
You better fucking do it.
Yeah.
Because who wants to be the guy that says a bunch of stuff and just talks about it?
Yeah.
And never does anything.
No, and that
bothers me so much when people do that.
Dude, and there's a lot of it.
Of course. I got this project. Oh, did you get funding yet?
Yeah.
Are you a legal entity?
Yeah.
Well, no.
Yeah.
Well, then fuck off, man. Come on.
That doesn't exist.
It does, yeah.
I go out to bars too. You know, it's like I can bullshit all day.
Once you put like $200 into form an entity, then I know at least you're somewhat serious.
Yeah, and that's the thing. No matter what we do, or like until we have an LLC, this is us talking about
that's
nothing.
Right. Dicking around in a bar.
Yeah. In which, dude, I am the best at.
Sure, but that's a time and place for it. But that does not make an entrepreneur.
No, and and that's. and so that's, so we went over there and had an awesome time, came back here, and, I, went around some restaurants, some great, some not so great, and, eventually ended up at a Larble where I was hired as a sous chef.
Wow.
And then our exec chef had a meltdown not that long before we opened. We had no recipes, none at all. Zero. I mean, again, my business partner at this time was my boss, and Vic was my boss.
Right.
And so when the original chef wouldn't respond to him, he'd be like, "Where are the recipes?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't fucking know. I go to his house and he watches surf videos all day and drinks Sambuca. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you who the fuck Kelly Slater is now, but other than that, I have no idea what's going on with this restaurant." And it was craziness. And I won't go. I mean, there was definitely an incident when the chef was let go, and it was not a good one. I mean, he went nuts. He showed up drunk.
Oh, yeah. But that's not so uncommon.
No, and
he didn't bring a gun in there, did he?
No.
Okay.
I mean,
there you go.
He took some swings with a stick, but no guns. And so he was let go, and then all of a sudden they were like, "Guess what? You're a chef." And I'm like, "Fuck, I don't know how to be that." And they're like, "Well, you need to figure it out." And then they're like, "By the way, this is also one of the bigger restaurants that's ever been opened in Austin." I'm like, "Great, I'm not up to this task at all."
Yeah.
Like, and I wasn't. I mean, when we opened, I wasn't. I mean, I would love to figure out a way to put into phrasing that I was prepared for a Larble.
Yeah.
And I absolutely was not.
Sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
If your wife's pregnant, you just have to be a dad.
Oh yeah.
You can't turn your back to it, right? So
and that's what was kind of laid out at my feet, not dumped, but laid out at my feet. And I was like, okay, we got to figure this out. And I had a good partner in Vic, which is why we still get along to this day. And he was like, "Dude, I'll help you out any way I can."
Yeah.
Because granted, he was my boss and one of, he wasn't the owner, but he was definitely an influencer on getting me the job. And he was like, "Well, you better do this." And then I think he saw direct fear. And I was like, "Okay, I'll help you out doing this." I'm like, "Okay, cool," because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing.
Yeah.
And because at that point, I hadn't even been a sous chef that long. I mean, I'd been a sous chef at...
But you have this thing. You have this thread, this spark running through you. That is that you can't let it fail.
Yeah.
Because you said it. You're going to do it. You went to school for this whole fucking thing. It's like fourth and 10, right?
Yeah.
You have to deliver on it. And I think that, or rather to phrase it in a question, does that pressure, does that necessity to have to perform, do you like that part of the job?
I mean, I do. I mean, I think, and we've talked about it, I think there's a negative side to that I don't buy into. But I think, I mean, Vic always says this. He always says it as a joke. He's like, "Oh, you always cook better when you're angry." And it's like, one, that might be kind of sad, but the truth is I cook better when I'm scared.
Yeah.
In the Hightower, the first 6 to 8 months, when I thought there's no way we're staying open, I was scared. I think we started producing the really good food at that point.
Yeah.
Were we producing great food before then? I don't know. I think it was good.
Yeah.
But I think once I saw that it could go away, and I think that's what we were humble when we opened up the Hightower, and nothing gets you more humble than when you pour everything into a place and no one shows up to it.
I know.
I mean, we opened our grand opening day was the ice storm in 2013. I think our opening day we had and granted, most of these people were either related to me or my friends. I think we had 15 people through the door.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fuck, we did something stupid.
It's sobering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd have nights during our first opening months when, your honeymoon period, when, we'd have, like I say, 15, 20 people through the door. And it's like, oh, in our projections, we had, 75 people a night, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what it was. And it just wasn't happening.
The reality sets in.
Yeah.
You're strapped into this.
Oh,
thing.
you're, I mean, monetarily, time, everything,
wrinkles, gray hair, all of it, man.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what sometimes, you have a duty to the people that come in there, to your employees and to the customers, to make sure you put forth a certain product. I think sometimes through the glamorization of our industry, people forget that a lot more people are like me than are like fucking Guy Fieri or
right,
whatever
right,
other
right.
dipshit celebrity chef
Sure.
you want to name, because they're, then fucking Tim Love,
Right,
yeah.
I
mean, and it's like, if Tim Love's food sucks, that's probably because the guy's never fucking seen it.
Yeah.
And if my food sucks, it is brutal because I was there that day when it was made.
It's on you.
And it's one of those things where I look at it, and when someone does have a bad experience, and again, there's no denying people have great experience at the Hightower, and I can honestly say, I think more often than not, people have great experiences at the Hightower, but it's not, I can't be stupid enough to say people haven't had great experiences there.
Yeah.
And it's a true letdown. And when people get vicious about it, it's one of those, and it's the TV / Yelp / Top Chef / the
celebrityization of cooking, right?
And I think it always comes down to people go, well, I'm due a critique. And it's like you always are. You always do your opinion.
Yeah.
But at the same time, remember that car wash you went to and they didn't wash your car perfectly. Did you savage their life? Because it's a careful balance. Right. And I'm always careful when I try to always be careful when I talk about it. But it is one of those things where I think people forget that, and this is not a poor pity me thing. Because like I said, I'm in the same boat as thousands, if not tens of thousands of other people. So this has nothing to do with me. But I think sometimes people forget the business part of the restaurant business.
Yeah.
And that this is my small business. This isn't my pet project. I'm not doing this because, I had a friend that told me my freaking pork jowl was the best thing ever. And people, I owe it to people to show it to them. And they deserve to try it. And
yeah.
And then they owe me the respect of loving it or anything like that. It's like, no, this is dude, we opened this with no money.
Yeah.
And
you're an indie band.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, and again, I don't think that's the customer's fault. I think that's a glamorization of what we do where it goes, man, I'm a cook with a skill set. That's all I am. I happen to be a business owning cook with a skill set.
Yeah.
But no one calls me chef in my kitchen. I won't allow the word in there. I fucking hate it. I don't identify with that. I look at TV and I go, I don't do the same thing that person does. And, and I've called plenty of people. I've called everyone up until I was the executive chef in a restaurant, and without fail. And it never bothered me.
Yeah.
And especially the ones that I thought earned it. Not all of them earned it, but most of them did. And, yes, chef, no chef. That's the party line, and that's great. But the way I look at it now is that I think there is a turn, and this is kind of a tangent, but it goes back to what we were talking about with the Austin kind of bubble. But I think it's a global bubble, or at least nationwide, to where I just think people forget. I think people in the restaurant forget who we're serving.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people in the restaurant forget that they're actual people. We get a shitty review or someone tells me this sucked. The only thing I do is I go home to my wife and kids and go, fuck, tomorrow's got to be better.
Right.
And I signed up for this. No one needs to feel sorry for me or anyone else in a restaurant.
Well, you're a
industry.
public figure in a sense. Your food is out there for all to judge.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where that's where I try to tell my guys what we do. We serve people. So, when I go home to my wife and kids and go, man, tonight sucked. Like, I know it sucked. Like, last Wednesday, when the lady called us out, when we got that review, I know it sucked. And it's just like, shit. And that's what I told my guys. I'd rather not open that night because we let everybody down. And so today, we've got to do so much better. And that's what happened. And the next day we did.
Yeah.
And now I look at it, I'm like, okay, we're back in line. We earned a shitty review, in my opinion.
But you can very much earn 10 great reviews, right?
And that's the point, is that it's, it's just, it's a very weird line right now with restaurants because there's a lot on TV about it. There's a lot of magazines about it, and there's, to a certain extent, the consumer wants, some people very much want that TV aspect of it too, even as they're dining, and it's like, and that's one of the things we always set up at the Hightower. It's like, okay, that's what's going to be our focal point, is the person you're sitting next to. Let's not worry about me. And when we first started, with our PR company, we made it very, very apparent that I was not supposed to be the focal point of any marketing.
Right.
I was like, this is not going to be
chef-driven.
Yeah, we have a kitchen-driven menu, but we don't have a chef-driven restaurant.
Yeah.
And again, with a lot of credit to our PR company, they did a very good job of that ball of crap we handed them, because they were just like, cool, you've given us no way to market anything that you're doing. And, that was it. So
I've got 2 other questions for you.
Okay.
Before we continue to drink some mezcal off the mic, right? I know you're really a fan of spicy foods. I am as well. We got to try the Anchovies Verde actually earlier, which is
amazing.
Amazing stuff. But you're working on a hot sauce, and this has been going on for some time. How close are you to being able to have a bottle in your hand?
It feels infinitely far away.
But you said it.
Yeah, I did.
And so you said it, which is good.
And we've literally produced some of it. So a buddy of mine plays in a band called still plays in a band called Hot Water Music, and his name's Chuck Reagan.
Yeah, I think we all know that's an amazing icon of this movement.
Yeah. I mean, and like I say, they were a band that I love forever.
Oh, amazing band.
And
Jameson forever.
Yes, yes. And through, so weird story. So and this is the only way I can tie things in. So the bass player, when we moved to Portland, Oregon, the bass player that we had waiting up there for us was a roadie for Hot Water Music, Alkaline Trio, a bunch of different bands. And on top of that, Chuck's wife, Jill, is really good friends with the drummer in that same band. So we had just known them for a long time. And actually, Watch It Burn had toured with the Crows, which was an offshoot of Hot Water Music back in the day. And so we just knew them. And so when Chuck was on a solo tour a few years back, like we'd see at shows and just kind of bullshit about food and things like that. And I always knew Chuck was a cook. And, we would just kind of send emails back and forth, text back and forth, and just going, hey, this is that, this is that. And then one time they came in and they were playing, I can't remember where the hell he was playing, but he came in and it was right when the Hightower opened. And I go, dude, we weren't open on Mondays then. I was like, come in, let's have a potluck. Let's have a bar, let's just sit around and eat and drink. And so him and John Gaunt, his fiddle player, came in, and Joe, his bass player, came in, and we all ate. We actually ate a bunch of boudin. And nice. And one of the things we've always done at the Hightower is, I think on average, we probably always have at least 5 hot sauces that we're making, because it always is either, even if we don't directly put it on a plate, it's always like we'll make some just to be a component of something. And so just through sheer the fact that I love sauce, like I brought them out, just lined them all up, and they're tasting them, and Chuck's like, dude, we need to talk. Like we need to discuss this, because Gaunt and I have been talking with Chuck's brother Paul about doing a sauce, and he was like, we'd love to have someone else on board. And, him and I
certifiable chef.
Yeah. And so we spoke, and at first, we were kind of just like, oh, maybe I'll have a small part in it. And I'm not very good at having small parts in anything, just because I get excited. And I realized that this was going to be a really cool thing. And so we just all decided to jump in together. And so we've gone through a few bottlers already. And the bottling business is not easy, as I've learned. I have friends that do this, and I'm shocked how freaking crazy it is. But it's called Southmouth. And honestly, I think and as I'm saying this, I'm jinxing us to a level that is immeasurable, but I think we should have a bottle in the next few months.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And again, by saying that, we won't see one until I'm 50, but I really do.
It still happens.
Yeah. And so we've got 2 sauces, a green and a red, and I think the green is especially cool, and I don't want to say what it is yet just because I don't want to get ripped off, but I think it's a neat idea. And, we just kind of partnered up with it, and it's turning, I think it'll turn into a really cool thing. Right now, it's slowly my worst nightmare because it just continues to feel like it's never going to get done.
Right.
But like with anything, I mean, it just freaking makes you stronger.
It does.
And it is one of those things where I was talking to Chuck a couple of weeks ago about this, and I was like, I literally remembered the first conversation we had about this, and I got off the phone, and I remember talking to Joy and go, this would be a cool thing to do for a couple months. And that was over a year and a half ago. and literally still a year and a half ago, and I don't have a bottle of sauce, you know? And
you will. I mean,
we totally will. I mean, it's done.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a co-packer now that we really like.
Yeah.
We're going through the initial phases of getting it done. It'll get done. I mean, and again, you can take how driven I am and multiply it by 100, and that's Chuck.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy doesn't fuck anything up. So, but no, I mean, you can follow either Hightower, Southmouth, or Chuck and find updates on that, because hopefully, for the love of God, we'll have some updates on it coming up here in the next couple months. Because,
I know you guys will, and I know that it will be delicious too.
Yeah, and I'm happy so far what we have produced, which is mostly coming out of the Hightower. I mean, if you go to Hightower and eat hot sauce, you're eating Southmouth. I mean, that's actually what it is.
I'm gonna have to focus on it next time. I always blend it in with everything. I'm like, oh, this is the perfect bite, but I want to isolate it and just really taste it. You know?
But yeah, I mean, it's, you know, and again, as we always talk about too many irons in the fire, it's always there, but again, if not, what's the point? So,
yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Well, so here's kind of my final question for you. I get a real good sense of how you are as a chef, as a business owner, and it's been a really interesting journey, like finally getting to learn more about you. That's something that's really like the best part about this whole fucking thing. We're sitting here, we sip two different mezcals, one that's a Tobalá from Mezcal Vago, that's a single distillation, and then a Del Maguey Tepestate, the one that started it all, Tepextate, the one that started it all for me.
Which is freaking nuts.
Right, it's like, it is the repeater for me.
Yeah.
That mezcal. There may be a few others, but that's kind of where your mind starts to open up. But so you've got such a deep interest in music, such a deep interest in family, in cooking, and flavor. So let's say you are at your favorite bar, wherever that may be in the world, okay? You're sipping a whiskey, you're sipping a mezcal, whatever you want. Who would you love to just sit there and sip and have a conversation with, dead or alive, someone that you knew, someone that you didn't know? Who might that person be?
I mean, and this is going to sound way, I don't know. I feel like this is an easy answer. I mean, there's no other way around it. And it's just because it's always where my mother's name was Sheila Hightower Dolezal. So that's what the Hightower is named after. And it's not the typical, which it's always there, like, oh, I just love one more day with her. Because, I mean, anyone passed away can say that. And I mean, anyone that has anyone passed away can say the answer I'm about to say too. It's easy, but it's, you know, she passed away, I think I was 29. And it is just one of those things just to see, you know, her. And just like what we were talking about, just as far as like the way people treat each other now, the way because she was not egotistical. It was just not in the sense that she's my mother, but just in the sense that she was such a good gauge of bullshit. And I always loved that. And that is something, you know, Joy is right up there. She's right up there. I mean, she'll call me out on my shit. Yeah. Right. You know, it's easy. But my mom had such a direct way to do it, where Joy very much does it as my wife and partner since 2004. And my mom did it as my mom. You know, like, I gave life to you, so you're going to listen to this. Yeah. And I always liked that direct approach. And I think sometimes I'm guilty of it when I shouldn't be doing it. But it is one of those things to where, you know, and not to get political, not at all, but I would love if I could have a drink with her and go, what the hell do you think of what's going on right now? Yeah. And as a woman that worked for AIDS Services of Dallas, that fought diversity, that fought all these things, and on both sides, you know, I mean, and I'm not just, this is not
AIDS is an indiscriminate thing. Yeah.
I'm not making an anti-Trump speech or anything like that. It's just a general kind of feel of the world right now. I would just really love to sit back and hear that, because it, you know, that conversation ended Yeah. 10 years ago. And it would be amazing to actually have that, that conversation
now,
with someone. Because and I wish there was a cool answer that I could give that it would be like, oh, it'd be like Joel Robichon or someone like that. But like, I to be honest, unless it's instances like this, I mean, I like it when people I can talk to other people that have other passions about food.
Yeah.
But talking to someone directly about food and the mystique of it and, the art of it. I mean, we can talk about the creation of it. Like we're talking about the sweet potato dish. That's easy. You can talk about creation. I think that's an awesome thing to represent and talk about. But I don't have a drive just to sit there and wax ecstatic about, the things I've done. I like, if I'm going to sit there and have a deep conversation with somebody, I don't want, music is always amazing to talk about. But other than that, it's just like, and not politics, but just going, how do you see the world? What do you think of this?
Sociological.
Yeah. And like what we talked about the other day when y'all came into the restaurant, it's going, I can look at my own industry and I go, there are fucking problems here. And I think that's, it's someone like you with that mentality of going, and to give you credit, it is a little bit the same conversation. When you have strong-willed people like my mom, like you, people that are going, these are my ideals and I'm going to stick by them. And being able to turn it on your own industry and going, man, a lot of what's going on right now is bullshit.
Right.
And that's what I always enjoyed about talking with my mom, even when I was a kid. I remember being 17 and standing in the kitchen for hours, just talking with her. And she'd be like, what's going on with this? Where's your mind at? And me being able to give an honest answer. And, as a kid, the first thing to do is lie. Even if you don't need to, you're like, oh, I'm not going to say this. But it was always one of those things where I could immediately say what I thought. And not that I didn't get in some, I remember skipping school once on a Tuesday. She called my house to talk to my brother, my older brother. And she was like, what are you doing at home? And immediately I was like, I'm skipping school. And because my brother and sister were such fuck ups, she goes, no, you're not. Put your brother on the phone. I'm like, holy fuck, I just got away with that. Because, one, I think she saw me as like the only like good kid. But two, it was like, it's a Tuesday. I'm clearly skipping school. And, but there was always that like feeling. I was like, oh, I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
Like, what's the good? It always like, she taught me a good example with women
could she see through you?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And because again, I'm not that good of a liar. And so, especially with her, she'd always be like, and she'd call me on it. And that's the other thing. There's always a basic human, or maybe it's American. I don't know. I didn't see it a lot in France, but there's a basic human, kind of tick to go, even if you think something's slightly bullshit, you're like, okay, roll with it. Just roll with it. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
She didn't do that. At least not with me. She'd be like, no, it's not true. I'm like, yeah, fuck, no, it's not.
That's how moms should be.
Yeah. And I always respected that.
It is. It's something, their ability to just cut to the core of it.
Yeah.
To see through the bullshit and say like, you know what? Stop lying.
And there's the selfish part to where like I would love for her to sit in the Hightower and be like, this is yours. Like this is you. Like, a lot of what the Hightower is based off is she was from San Antonio and Austin. That's like, my father was Czech. We take some Eastern European influences, but mostly, it gets bastardized through the filter and grinding machine that's our kitchen.
Yeah.
But what's hilarious is that a lot of our food starts out as Mexican food, in San Antonio based, because that's what she loved.
Yeah.
My wife and I, Joy, we went down to San Antonio, I think a month or two ago, and we went to Tecamolino, which is this little hole-in-the-wall Mexican food place. It's like lard incarnate in a good way.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in the negative way.
Yeah.
I mean that in the good way, to where they still have the balls to serve it, and it's the best fucking food. And it's the food she went to when she was a kid. And besides the fact that I think it's a good restaurant, the only reason I go there is because when I sit there, I go, my mom sat in this restaurant. That is, and I'm sitting there with my kids, and there's not a value you can place on that. There's not if I only had one more day wish placed on that. It's going, this is who I am. This is who I'm going to create around me. And when we created the Hightower, Vic obviously put a lot of himself in it, but that's the part of myself that I put in it and went this, and we talk about measuring, your purpose and, the sacrifices you make. And it's like, well, I mean, it's all got to be out there. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a huge thing, and but I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know. It's an amazing feeling. I mean, and it's an amazing feeling that she gave me, and that I mean, even when I was 16 and a complete asshole, because every 16-year-old is, I still remembered going, they're pretty cool. My mom's a badass, and it was a great feeling.
It's amazing, man, and I feel the same way about my mom, and we'll talk about kind of that off mic. But it's fun, 2 years, 3 years in the making. You've done an amazing job with the Hightower. Every time I go in, drinks are good. Food is just, it's so fucking good. It's like Oasis, right? Like common man, but yet nuanced and so skillful that you can't stop humming along.
Yeah,
like that's just how I feel about it.
I appreciate it.
And it's been a really great experience to see how far you've come and how East Austin has embraced.
No, you were there from early days, so I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, man, and I'm so glad we got to sit and sip mezcal, talk about Fugazi, food, fucking booze.
Yeah,
Chad, I couldn't ask for a better chat, man. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Mike.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
Well, there you have it, Mr. Chad Dolezal, owner-operator of the Hightower, Austin, one of the best restaurants in town, best values, best vibes. And honestly, if you think about Chad himself as a guitar player, man, deeply influenced by Fugazi, hot water music, the touring lifestyle, I kind of feel like the Hightower reflects these things, these DIY sensibilities. The food is filled with richness and heart and creativity, but it's never pretentious. It's meant to please. It's meant to capture an audience. And I feel like that's the kind of guy Chad is. Not stuck up, not pretentious, not arrogant, like you so often find with chefs that are well known in this city and many others. So it was great sipping some mezcal with you, Chad. I can't wait till this hot sauce comes out. So thanks everybody for listening to Show to V with Mike G. No matter how many episodes of HBO series Oz you have left, or if you're thinking, man, I don't know if I prefer still rosé or sparkling rosé in such a time of confusion, please keep dancing.